Lieutenant Maya Carter stood alone on the edge of the rugged outcrop, the dry wind tugging at her uniform as the last rays of the sun dipped behind the jagged mountains. The horizon was painted with hues of orange and purple, casting long shadows over the dense, unforgiving terrain below. For most, this might have been a moment of peace, a breathtaking view to savor. But for Maya, it was the final quiet breath before the storm of combat would consume her world. She pulled her jacket tighter, despite the warmth of the evening air. The weight of her gear pressed against her body like an old friend, familiar, reassuring, yet heavy with responsibility. The SEAL uniform she wore was more than just fabric and patches. It was a symbol of countless hours of grueling training, sacrifice, and an unyielding commitment to protect those around her. Maya's mind flickered briefly to the past years spent running drills before dawn, mastering every medical procedure under high stress, and enduring the brutal physical tests that had separated the capable from the elite. She had chosen this path deliberately, drawn by a desire to serve and a need to heal, even in the harshest conditions. As a SEAL medic, she was not only trained to fight, but to save lives in the most perilous moments. That dual role, the healer in the middle of chaos, defined who she was. Her team was waiting below, moving in tight formation, their silhouettes barely visible in the dimming light. Every one of them was hand-picked brothers and sisters in arms who trusted her with their lives, and whom she vowed to protect at any cost. The mission they were about to undertake was critical, but cloaked in uncertainty. Intelligence was limited, the enemy's strength unknown, and the terrain brutal. Maya inhaled deeply, savoring the quiet. The stillness felt surreal, almost fragile, as if the world itself was holding its breath. She could hear the faint rustle of leaves, the distant call of a bird, and the steady thump of her own heartbeat, calm, measured, ready. A soft vibration on her wrist caught her attention. She glanced down at her watch, its digital face glowing faintly. Time was slipping away. Orders had come through hours earlier, a swift insertion into enemy territory to disrupt a dangerous network. The SEALs were tasked with surgical precision: strike hard, gather intel, and disappear before the enemy could react. Maya's thoughts shifted to the lives at stake. Beyond the mission objectives, there were comrades relying on her skills, their survival often hanging on the seconds it took to apply a tourniquet or stop a hemorrhage. She could not afford to be distracted. The training drilled into her the necessity of focus under fire. She tightened the straps on her medical pack, checking the supplies inside: bandages, morphine injectors, hemostatic agents, all meticulously organized and ready. Years of experience told her that no amount of preparation could fully ready someone for the unpredictable chaos of battle, but she would be damned if she wasn't as prepared as humanly possible. The emblem stitched on her chest caught her eye, the silver trident, gleaming faintly in the twilight. It was more than just the SEAL insignia. It was a family heirloom passed down through generations, a reminder of the legacy she carried on her shoulders. Her father had worn the same emblem, a man who had served with honor and had given everything for his country. That connection grounded her, a quiet strength that surged beneath the surface. Her phone buzzed again, a message from Captain Reynolds, the team leader. All units check in. Operation Silent Storm commences at 1900 hours. Maya typed back quickly, "Ready, medic in position." The screen dimmed as she slipped the phone back into her pocket. The distant rumble of engines broke the silence, a reminder that the mission was moving from preparation to action. A stealth helicopter hovered briefly in the sky before descending into the valley below. The team gathered, faces set with determination and unspoken fears. Maya caught their eyes, offering a small nod. No words were needed. They understood each other too well. As the helicopter's blades thumped louder, Maya took a final glance at the fading light. The calm was ending. The storm was coming. The flight was short but tense. Every bump and jolt sent Maya's heart racing, her fingers gripping the armrest as the helicopter pierced the thick canopy below. When the rotors finally slowed, they were in enemy territory, a landscape of rocky hills, sparse vegetation, and the lurking shadows of danger. The team disembarked swiftly, moving in practiced silence. Maya's boots sank slightly into the dry soil as they formed a perimeter. Every sense was alert, ears tuned for the slightest noise, eyes scanning the horizon for movement. The sun was gone now, replaced by the cold light of stars and the occasional flicker of distant campfires. The air smelled of dust and smoke, a battlefield waiting to ignite. Minutes stretched like hours as the team advanced. Maya's breath was steady, her hands ready for the inevitable. The silence was deceptive. Every step forward was a gamble with fate. Suddenly, a flicker of movement, shadowy figures darting between rocks. The enemy had spotted them. Gunfire erupted like thunder, shattering the stillness. Bullets whipped past Maya's head as she dove to the ground, heart pounding. This was the moment she had trained for. The calm before the storm was over. The staccato of gunfire shattered the night's fragile silence, tearing through the still air like an explosion of anger and fear. Lieutenant Maya Carter's heart pounded fiercely against her ribs, matching the rapid bursts echoing around her. Every instinct screamed at her to move, to react, but training anchored her feet to the dry dirt beneath her. Her eyes scanned the chaotic scene, tracking her teammates as they scrambled for cover, ducking behind rocks and jagged boulders. There, movements swift and precise, despite the storm of bullets. Ahead, shadows flickered, enemy combatants, hidden in the rocky folds of the terrain, firing with deadly intent. Maya's breath came in steady, controlled bursts. She felt the familiar adrenaline flood her veins, sharpening her senses and dulling pain. The mission had transformed in an instant. What was meant to be a surgical strike now felt like a plunge into a maelstrom with no clear path out. Her mind flashed back to briefings, to the careful planning and strategy sessions where every possibility had been mapped. Yet no plan could fully prepare anyone for this. The raw chaos of battle, where seconds stretched into eternities and survival hinged on split-second decisions. Maya's training was her lifeline. As the SEAL medic, she was not just a healer, but a warrior who moved alongside the fighters, ready to leap into action at a moment's notice. Her medical pack felt heavier with every second, laden with supplies that could mean the difference between life and death. She mentally reviewed procedures, hemorrhage control, airway management, pain mitigation, drilled so often they had become second nature. Medic status, barked Captain Reynolds, his voice cutting through the cacophony. His silhouette was barely visible in the dim light, crouched behind a large outcrop, pistol raised. Maya shouted back, "Ready? No casualties yet, but we're taking fire." Suddenly, a sharp cry split the air. A young SEAL, Petty Officer James, went down just a few meters away, clutching his thigh. Maya's eyes locked onto the injury, a ragged hole with blood pooling rapidly. Without hesitation, she sprinted through the hailstorm of bullets, body low, heart hammering. Each step was agony, but she moved with practiced grace, closing the distance with unwavering resolve. "James, stay with me," she called out as she dropped beside him, pulling medical supplies from her pack. Her hands worked swiftly, ripping, opening his uniform and applying a tourniquet above the wound. Blood soaked her gloves, but she didn't flinch. Her voice was calm, steady, a lifeline in the chaos. James winced but nodded, his breathing ragged. Around them, the firefight raged, but Maya was a calm island in the storm. She applied pressure to stem the bleeding, then injected morphine to dull the pain. "Help is coming," she assured him, though her eyes betrayed the unspoken truth. It might not come soon enough. Her radio crackled. Contact front. Enemy closing in. The team's formation tightened, bullets ricocheting off rocks as the enemy pressed their advantage. Maya's gaze flickered toward Captain Reynolds, who gave a curt nod. They had to move, stay mobile, keep the enemy off balance. Supporting James with one arm, Maya rose, every muscle burning. The wounded man's weight threatened to drag her down, but she refused to falter. Survival was a shared burden. Together, they pushed forward into the darkness. The landscape around them was alien and hostile. A maze of jagged cliffs and narrow ravines, illuminated only by starlight and sporadic muzzle flashes. Every step was a test of endurance and nerve. Maya's boots crunched over loose gravel, each sound magnified in the tense silence between bursts of gunfire. Her thoughts briefly wandered to the civilians who might be caught in this hell. The innocent lives shadowed by the violence, whose stories were often forgotten in the larger war narrative. It was for them she fought, for every life that mattered beyond the mission's cold objectives. Then came another cry, this time closer. A fresh casualty. A sniper's bullet had found its mark. Maya's blood ran cold as she dashed toward the fallen soldier, a young man no older than 20. His face was pale, eyes wide with shock. "Hold on, I'm here," she whispered urgently, assessing the wound. The bullet had grazed his neck, and blood trickled down his throat. Time was a merciless enemy. Kneeling beside him, Maya worked. Quickly, using a field dressing to staunch the bleeding and stabilize his airway. Her hands moved with practiced precision, but her heart ached with every twitch of pain she witnessed. Suddenly, a deafening explosion rocked the ground nearby. Dirt and rocks sprayed into the air. Maya was thrown sideways, her body slamming against a boulder. Dazed, she struggled to rise, tasting blood in her mouth. Pain radiated from her ribs, sharp and unrelenting. Through the haze, she saw Captain Reynolds signaling frantically. The team was regrouping for extraction, a chance to retreat, to live to fight another day. But Maya's gaze was drawn back to the wounded soldier. He was gasping, fading fast. "No," she thought fiercely. "Not on my watch." Ignoring the searing pain, Maya pulled him close, lifting his head to keep his airway open. "Stay with me," she pleaded, voice cracking with desperation. Suddenly, a shadow flickered in the periphery, an enemy combatant closing in, weapon raised. Maya's training kicked in. She shoved the soldier behind her, pulling out her sidearm. A single shot rang out, the attacker collapsing silently. The team was rallying now, pulling back toward the designated extraction point. Maya wrapped the soldier tightly in a thermal blanket, securing him to a makeshift stretcher. With James on one side and the sniper on the other, Maya took point, leading the wounded through the rocky labyrinth. Every breath was agony. Every heartbeat a reminder of the thin line between life and death. Behind them, the enemy's shouts grew louder. The night was alive with violence and fear, but Maya's resolve burned brighter than ever. She was the lifeline, the anchor in this tempest. As they neared the extraction zone, Maya's vision blurred from exhaustion and pain. Her ribs protested with every movement, but she pushed onward, driven by something deeper than duty hope. A spotlight cut through the darkness, the helicopter hovering above like a guardian angel. A team scrambled aboard, the wounded loaded swiftly. Inside the cabin, Maya sank into a seat, hands trembling as medics took over. Her body was silent and bleeding, but her spirit remained unbroken. The helicopter lifted off, soaring into the night sky, carrying with it a fragile thread of survival. Into the unknown they had ventured, and for now they had survived. The helicopter's rotors chopped through the night air, its dull roar masking the tension thick inside the cabin. Lieutenant Maya Carter leaned back against the cold metal wall, her breath shallow and rapid. Around her, The medics worked tirelessly, their hands steady as they tended to the wounded. But Maya wasn't one of the patients today. She was still a medic, still fighting for every breath and beat of the heart that needed her. The first casualty, Petty Officer James, was stable for the moment. His leg wound had been severe, but Maya's swift application of the tourniquet and pain management had bought precious time. Still, the dull red stain spreading across his uniform reminded her just how close the edge was. He was alive, but barely. Maya's gaze flicked over to the young sniper she'd pulled from the brink, a fresh scar on the battlefield, his face pale but breathing. His neck wound had been critical, but with field dressing and stabilization, he was hanging on. The medics whispered reassurances, but Maya knew better. In war, every saved life was a temporary victory. The helicopter banked low, moving toward the forward operating base, where evacuation and further treatment awaited. Maya's eyes scanned the faces of her teammates. They were exhausted, shaken, but resolute. The adrenaline that had carried them through the firefight was beginning to wane, replaced by the heavy weight of reality, the cost of combat. Her hands trembled slightly, the adrenaline crash setting in. She closed her eyes briefly, forcing calm back into her body. She was trained to keep it together, to be the calm in the chaos. But inside, every wound she saw was a wound she carried with her. The base was a flurry of activity as the helicopter landed on the rough landing pad. Medical personnel surged forward, transferring the wounded into triage tents. Maya moved alongside them, her medical kit slung over one shoulder, ready for the next challenge. "Medic Carter," called out Chief Medical Officer Daniels, a stern but kind man who had seen too many battles himself. "We've got 3 more casualties inbound. You're on point for stabilization." Maya nodded, swallowing the fatigue that threatened to swallow her whole. The mission was far from over. The first of the new casualties arrived a corporal with a deep chest wound, struggling for every breath. Maya's hands moved quickly, applying pressure and preparing for emergency intubation. Time was slipping through her fingers like sand. Around her, the base buzzed with controlled urgency. Wounded soldiers groaned softly, their pain muffled by painkillers and exhaustion. The sounds of treatment mixed with shouted orders and the distant hum of helicopters arriving and departing. This was the relentless heartbeat of war, where saving lives was a race against the clock. Maya's mind raced through the protocols. Every action had to be precise, every decision critical. A misplaced bandage, a delayed injection, could mean the difference between life and death. Her training was her shield, the countless hours spent drilling these procedures, giving her a steady hand even as the world spun out of control. Despite the chaos, she caught brief moments of connection fingers, clasping hers in silent gratitude, a flicker of trust in weary eyes. These small exchanges fueled her determination, reminding her why she endured. But then the unexpected happened. A call came over the radio, a distress signal from a patrol still in the field. They had taken heavy fire, with multiple casualties needing immediate extraction. The medics at the base exchanged grim looks. Maya's heart sank. The fight was far from over. Captain Reynolds appeared beside her, his face grim but composed. "We need volunteers for the extraction team," he said. Without hesitation, Maya stepped forward. "I'm in." The team assembled quickly, a small, fast-response group armed for speed and efficiency. Maya's pack was lighter now, stripped of excess to keep her mobile. Her pulse quickened with a mix of fear and resolve. They moved out under the cloak of darkness, the moon a faint glow behind thick clouds. The terrain was even harsher here, steep ridges and narrow valleys that swallowed sound and light. Every step was cautious, every shadow a potential threat. As they neared the patrol's last known location, Maya's ears caught faint cries, pain, and desperation carried on the night breeze. Her breath hitched, adrenaline surging anew. She adjusted her medkit, ready to face the unknown. Suddenly, gunfire erupted again. The enemy had not relinquished their hold. Maya dropped to the ground, heart pounding, eyes darting. She spotted the patrol pinned behind a low wall, wounded soldiers bleeding out under relentless fire. The team laid down suppressive fire, buying precious seconds. Maya sprinted across the open ground, bullets whipping past her. She reached the first casualty, a young seal with a shattered arm and deep lacerations. Her hands worked quickly, applying a tourniquet and bandaging wounds, her voice low and steady despite the chaos. "Stay with me, brother. Help is coming." She moved swiftly from one wounded to another, her medical skills a lifeline in the storm. Each touch was a promise that they would not be left behind, that their lives mattered. But the enemy was closing in. Maya heard the distinct sound of an explosion nearby, a grenade landing too close. She shielded a soldier with her own body, the blast knocking her to the ground. Pain exploded in her ribs, sharp and searing, but she refused to cry out. Through the haze of pain and smoke, she caught sight of the emblem on her uniform, the silver trident glinting in the moonlight. It was a symbol of honor and sacrifice, a legacy passed down from her father, a fallen seal who had taught her everything about courage. That emblem grounded her, even as blood trickled down her side. Ignoring the pain, Maya continued her work, her hands moving with fierce determination. The wounded had to be stabilized. The mission depended on it. Slowly, the extraction team gathered their injured and prepared to retreat. Maya helped carry a wounded soldier to safety, each step a testament to her resolve. The night air was thick with smoke and tension, but she was unyielding. Back at the base, medics awaited with stretchers and supplies. The wounded were rushed inside, their groans filling the air. Maya collapsed briefly against a wall, her body trembling from exhaustion and pain. She closed her eyes, breathing through the ache. The first wounds of the mission had been deep, not just on bodies, but etched into souls. Maya knew this was only the beginning. As dawn approached, the base settled into a tense quiet. Maya sat alone for a moment, reflecting on the night's horrors and small victories. The emblem on her chest felt heavier now, a reminder of the price they all paid. Her thoughts were interrupted by a soft voice. "You did good, Lieutenant." She looked up to see Chief Daniels, his eyes filled with respect. "We'll need you again soon. The fight isn't over." Maya nodded, steeling herself for the battles ahead. The first wounds were only the start of a long road. The cold dawn crept slowly over the horizon, leading pale light into the night shadows. Lieutenant Maya Carter sat perched on a battered crate near the medical tent, her body aching with every breath. The chaos of the previous night's firefight still hung heavy in the air, mingled with the sharp scent of gunpowder, blood, and sweat. Her uniform was stained with grime and dust, the emblem on her chest, a silver trident shining faintly standing out against the muted colors like a beacon. But beneath the surface, Maya was silent and bleeding. It wasn't just the physical wounds that gnawed at her. The pain radiating from her ribs, where an unseen bullet had grazed her during the extraction mission, was a constant reminder of how close death had come. Yet she had refused to acknowledge it fully, had ignored the burning ache, pushing herself forward, driven by duty and sheer will. She flexed her fingers, feeling the dull throb in her side with every movement. The medics at the base had cleaned and bandaged the injury, but the true depth of the damage was still unknown. The pain was manageable, but the danger lurked quietly beneath the surface, like a predator waiting for its moment. Maya glanced down at the emblem stitched over her heart, the silver trident her father had worn with pride. It had once symbolized strength and honor. Now it felt like a silent witness to her struggle, an emblem soaked not just with sweat and blood, but with a weight she wasn't sure she could carry. The memories came unbidden. She saw her father's face, stern but kind, as he taught her the meaning of resilience and sacrifice. He had died on a mission when she was just a child, his final act a testament to courage and duty. The emblem had been passed down to her, a legacy she had sworn to uphold. And now, lying in the dust of a foreign land, Maya felt the weight of that legacy heavier than ever. Her mind drifted back to the firefight, the flash of muzzle fire, the screams of wounded comrades, the frantic rush to save lives. The adrenaline had been her shield then, but now, in the quiet moments, the full impact settled over her like a shroud. She tried to focus on the present, the gentle hum of activity around the base, the steady footsteps of soldiers moving between tents, the soft murmur of voices sharing updates. But the ache inside was louder than the noise outside. Suddenly, a hand rested gently on her shoulder. "Lieutenant, you need to get checked again," came a calm voice. It was Lieutenant Mason, a fellow medic who had been by her side during the mission. His eyes were filled with concern. Maya forced a small smile. "I'm fine, Mason. Just tired." He shook his head gently. "You're not fine. You've been pushing too hard. You're bleeding. You need rest." She looked down again, at the crimson stain spreading slowly beneath her uniform. For a moment, she had refused to see it, the denial as fierce as the pain. Mason's grip tightened, anchoring her to reality. "We'll get you patched up properly. You're not invincible, Maya." The truth hit her harder than any bullet wound. She wasn't invincible. None of them were. Reluctantly, Maya allowed herself to be helped inside the medical tent. The fluorescent lights flickered overhead, casting harsh shadows on the sterile equipment and white walls. She lay back on a cot as medics swarmed around her, their faces professional but compassionate. The examination was thorough. An X-ray revealed a fractured rib and a small internal bleed. The injury was serious, but manageable with proper care and rest. Maya clenched her jaw, refusing to let the pain dictate her spirit. The medic's voice was gentle but firm. "You need to take it easy. Push too hard, and it could get worse." She nodded silently, knowing deep down that the fight inside her was far from over. As the medics worked, Maya's thoughts spiraled deeper. The emblem on her chest felt heavier still more than a symbol now. It was a silent oath to those she had lost and those she still fought to save. Her mind returned to the men and women she had seen fall in battle, their faces burned into her memory, their sacrifice a haunting melody she couldn't silence. Each casualty was a wound, not just in flesh but in soul. Tears pricked at her eyes, but she blinked them away. There was no time for weakness, no room for doubt. But as she lay there, silent and bleeding, Maya realized that courage wasn't the absence of fear or pain. It was facing those wounds head-on, carrying the scars with pride, and moving forward anyway. Outside, the base was stirring. The mission continued, relentless and unforgiving. Inside, Maya Carter made a silent promise to heal, to fight, and to honor the emblem she bore, no matter the cost. The sun hung low in the dusty sky, casting long shadows over the forward operating base. Lieutenant Maya Carter lay quietly in the medical tent, her body still aching from the fractured rib and internal bleed sustained during the mission. But it wasn't just the physical pain that weighed on her. It was the burden of the emblem on her chest. The silver trident, gleaming faintly against the fabric of her uniform, was more than a patch or a badge. It was a symbol of legacy, sacrifice, and unyielding duty. It represented everything her father had been: a man of courage, strength, and honor, and everything Maya strived to embody every single day. But today, that emblem felt like a chain, binding her to a past she hadn't fully confronted and a future she feared might never come. Maya's mind drifted back to childhood, to the afternoon spent in her father's home, where stories of valor and hardship painted a picture of a life dedicated to something bigger than oneself. Her father had been a Navy SEAL, a warrior who faced dangers most couldn't fathom. His death on a mission years ago had left an indelible scar on her family, and the trident patch she now wore was the torch passed down, a symbol she had earned through blood, sweat, and tears. Yet beneath the pride was an undercurrent of doubt. Could she live up to that legacy? Was she strong enough? Brave enough? The pain in her ribs was a constant reminder that she was mortal, vulnerable. As the medics fussed over her, Maya's gaze wandered toward the small window of the tent. Outside, the base was a hive of activity soldiers preparing for the next operation. Engines humming, orders barked sharply across the compound. Life here moved fast, relentless and unforgiving. Rest was a luxury few could afford. Despite the urging of her fellow medics to stay off her feet, Maya's heart wouldn't let her remain idle. She was a healer, a protector, and the line between survival and death often hinged on split-second decisions. To her, rest felt like surrender. "Lieutenant," came a soft voice. Lieutenant Mason stood at the edge of the cot, his eyes full of concern. "You need to listen to them. Your body won't hold up if you keep pushing." Maya managed a faint smile. "I'm fine. Just a few bruises." He shook his head, stepping closer. "It's more than that. We lost good people out there. And you're the one who pulled them back. You don't get to break down now." She looked away, the weight of his words settling heavy. Mason was right. She had been the lifeline for her team, the one who had stopped the bleeding and brought hope amidst the chaos. But who was there to catch her when she faltered? The medical officer overseeing her care entered, clipboard in hand, his expression a mixture of professionalism and sympathy. "Lieutenant Carter, your vitals are stable, but you have a slow internal bleed. We need to monitor you closely over the next 48 hours. No strenuous activity." Maya nodded silently, the sting of frustration pricking at her. She was a soldier, a warrior, but now she was tethered to a cot like a patient. Hours passed, each moment stretching thin as Maya wrestled with her thoughts. She found herself replaying the mission in her mind, the frantic rush through enemy fire, the cries of wounded comrades, the silent weight of the emblem on her chest. It was a symbol she had worn with pride, but now it felt almost like a curse. Her father's voice echoed in her memory, steady and commanding. "The emblem isn't just a badge. It's a responsibility. You carry it not just on your chest, but in your heart." She wanted to believe that. She wanted to live up to it. But the cost was mounting. The base was suddenly shaken by an urgent call over the radio. Enemy forces had been spotted moving closer, threatening to overrun their position. The alarm bells rang out, soldiers scrambling to arms. Maya's heart leapt despite her body's protests. Mason rushed back into the tent. "They're calling for medics to prepare for casualties." "You're coming with us." "No," Maya whispered fiercely. "I'm not leaving this cot." He grabbed her arm gently, but firmly. "You're part of this team. We need you." The decision was made before she could argue further. Wrapped in a medical jacket, Maya was helped to her feet. Each movement sent a sharp stab through her ribs, but she gritted her teeth and pushed forward. Outside, the base was alive with tension. Soldiers took positions, weapons ready. The enemy was close, and Maya could feel the familiar rush of adrenaline trying to push away the pain. The first wave hit fast and hard. Explosions shattered the early morning calm as gunfire erupted. Maya's training kicked in instantly. She moved with purpose despite the agony stabbing through her chest, her eyes sharp, scanning for the wounded. The triage tents became chaos as casualties poured in. Maya worked swiftly, stabilizing wounds, administering pain relief, and giving words of comfort to those too shocked to speak. Her hands moved methodically, but inside, the storm raged. In the midst of the battle, a young private collapsed beside her, clutching his side, blood pooling beneath him. Maya's heart clenched. She dropped to her knees, tearing open his uniform and applying pressure. "Stay with me," she whispered urgently. "You're going to make it." The private's eyes flickered, the pain evident, but there was a spark of trust in them. For a moment, the chaos faded around her, the screams, the gunfire, the burning landscape. It was just Maya and the soldier, fighting for life in a war that seemed endless. But the pain in her ribs flared viciously. She bit back a scream, swallowing it as she worked. Nearby, Mason shouted orders, rallying the medics. "We need evac on the double." More wounded incoming. Maya glanced around, spotting Captain Reynolds coordinating defensive positions. His eyes met hers briefly, an unspoken understanding passed between them. They were all running on the edge, each second a battle. The emblem on Maya's chest glinted in the sunlight, a silent testament to the sacrifices made and those still to come. Hours blurred. The enemy pressed their attack relentlessly, but the defenders held. Maya's body screamed in protest, but her spirit held firm. She was more than the pain, more than the injury. She was the legacy of a father, the hope for a team, the lifeline for the wounded. As dusk fell, the fighting began to ease. Reinforcements arrived, and the enemy withdrew, leaving behind a trail of devastation. Maya collapsed into a chair, drained but alive. Her hands trembled, blood smeared across her gloves. The emblem on her chest felt heavier than ever, a silent weight that reminded her of every life lost, every sacrifice made. Captain Reynolds approached, placing a hand on her shoulder. "You did good today, Lieutenant. We couldn't have made it without you." Maya nodded, exhaustion pulling at her. "I just hope it's enough." Reynolds gave a grim smile. "It never is. But it's what keeps us going." Later that night, alone in her tent, Maya stared at the emblem pinned over her heart. It was more than a patch. It was a silent promise, a legacy of courage and sacrifice. Silent and bleeding, she had stood firm. And she would carry that weight, no matter the cost. The days following the battle were a blur of exhaustion and relentless work. Lieutenant Maya Carter's fractured ribs throbbed with every breath, a constant reminder of how close death had come. Yet she pushed forward, driven by a force stronger than pain, a fierce commitment to the men and women who depended on her. The emblem on her chest, the silver trident, seemed to pulse with a life of its own. It was more than just a symbol of the elite SEALs. It was a connection to her past, her family, and her purpose. But as the pain in her body intensified, so too did the weight of that legacy. Maya sat alone one evening in the dim light of the medical tent, her thoughts heavy. The base had settled into a tense calm, soldiers repairing equipment and tending to their own wounds. The distant hum of generators and quiet conversations were a faint backdrop to her racing mind. Her hand traced the outline of the emblem on her uniform. She remembered the first time she had pinned it there, pride and fear mingling in her chest. It was a moment of triumph, but also of deep responsibility. She was no longer just Maya. She was a SEAL, a medic, a bearer of her father's legacy. But what did that truly mean? Her father's stories echoed in her mind. He had once told her that the emblem wasn't just about bravery in battle, it was about sacrifice, humility, and the willingness to bear burdens others could not. It was about the silent battles fought long after the guns fell silent. Maya realized now that those words held a deeper truth. The pain she felt, the sacrifices she made, they were part of something greater. The emblem was a reminder that her fight extended beyond the battlefield. It was a fight for honor, for survival, and for those who could not fight for themselves. Suddenly, the flap of the tent rustled. Lieutenant Mason entered, his face lined with fatigue, but his eyes warm with concern. "You okay?" he asked softly. Maya managed a tired smile. "I'm hanging in there." He pulled up a chair and sat beside her. "We all are. But you've been pushing too hard. You need to take care of yourself." She shook her head. "There's no time for that. Every second counts." Mason sighed. "Maybe, but if you break down, you won't be able to help anyone. You have to be strong for yourself, too." Their conversation was interrupted by a call. Over the radio, another patrol was trapped, wounded, and in desperate need of extraction. Without hesitation, Mason stood. "We've got to move." Maya rose slowly, the pain sharp but manageable. "I'm coming with you." They moved swiftly through the base, the weight of their mission pressing down on them. As they boarded the helicopter, Maya felt the familiar rush of adrenaline mingled with the ache in her ribs. The battlefield was waiting, and she had a duty to fulfill. The night was cold and still as the helicopter approached the coordinates. The extraction team moved quickly, locating the trapped patrol under the cover of darkness. The wounded were stabilized and carried aboard, each life a testament to the medic's skill and courage. During the flight back, Maya tended to a young soldier with a severe head injury. His breathing was shallow, and his eyes flickered with pain and confusion. She held his hand, whispering words of reassurance despite the uncertainty. The emblem on her chest caught the faint light, gleaning softly a silent vow to protect, to heal, and to endure. Back at the base, Maya's injury worsened. The internal bleeding caused dizziness and weakness, but she refused to admit defeat. It was only when she collapsed during a routine check that the medical team insisted on evacuation to a larger facility. As she was prepared for transport, Captain Reynolds approached, his expression serious. "You've done more than anyone could ask, Maya. It's time to rest and recover." She nodded, the fight momentarily leaving her. The helicopter lifted off, carrying her away from the battlefield, but deeper into the journey of healing. In the sterile hospital room, surrounded by white walls and the hum of machines, Maya finally confronted her vulnerability. The emblem was still pinned to her uniform, but now it felt different, not just a badge of honor, but a symbol of resilience. Her father's voice returned to her, steady and strong. "The emblem is carried in your heart, Maya. It's the courage to face the silent battles within." As she drifted into a restless sleep, Maya understood that the true meaning of the emblem was not just about survival on the battlefield, but about enduring the scars seen and unseen that came with the fight. And she was ready to carry that burden, silent and strong. The sterile hospital room was both a sanctuary and a prison for Lieutenant Maya Carter. The hum of machines and the soft beep of monitors were a constant reminder that she was alive but fragile. The fractured ribs and internal bleeding had worsened beyond what the field medics had anticipated, necessitating her evacuation to a larger medical facility far from the front lines. For the first time in weeks, Maya was forced to slow down. The relentless pace of war had come to a grinding halt for her, and with it, the emotional toll began to surface. The silence of the hospital was deafening compared to the chaos she was used to. There were no explosions, no gunfire, no cries for help, just the quiet tick of time passing. Maya lay in her bed, staring at the ceiling, the emblem on her uniform still pinned proudly over her heart. It gleamed under the fluorescent lights, a silver trident, a symbol of courage, sacrifice, and unyielding strength. But now, it felt heavier than ever. It was not just the emblem of a warrior on the battlefield, but the emblem of a woman fighting battles within. The doctors had warned her that recovery would be slow, that pushing too hard too soon could be fatal. But the most difficult battle wasn't the physical healing. It was the quiet war raging inside her mind. Memories from the mission played on repeat in her thoughts, the flash of gunfire, the screams of the wounded, the sight of comrades falling beside her. Each face was etched into her soul, a permanent scar. She had been trained to suppress pain, to carry on no matter the cost. But now, the emotional weight threatened to overwhelm her. Guilt gnawed at her survivor's guilt, the unspoken ache that came from living when others had not. The emblem was a reminder of all she had lost and all she still had to fight for. Yet, it was also a burden. How could she carry such weight without breaking? One afternoon, the door to her room opened quietly. Lieutenant Mason entered, carrying a small bouquet of wildflowers. His eyes softened as he approached the bedside. "Hey," he said gently, placing the flowers on the table beside her. "I thought you could use something bright." Maya smiled faintly, touched by the gesture. "Thanks, Mason." He pulled up a chair and sat beside her. "You're not alone in this, you know." She looked at him, her eyes weary but grateful. "It doesn't feel like it sometimes." Mason nodded. "I get it. I've seen it too, the silent battles, the weight of what we carry. But you're stronger than you think." Maya sighed, the tears threatening to spill. "I don't know if I'm strong enough. I keep thinking about those we lost, about what I could have done differently." Mason reached out, placing a reassuring hand on hers. "You did everything you could. No one can carry that burden alone. It's okay to ask for help." His words were a balm to her wounded spirit. For the first time, Maya allowed herself to lean on someone else, to share the pain she had kept locked away. Days turned into weeks, as Maya underwent treatment and therapy. The physical wounds began to heal, but the emotional scars required a different kind of care. She attended counseling sessions, talking through her fears and guilt, learning to forgive herself. Through it all, the emblem on her chest remained a reminder of her resilience and the legacy she was determined to honor. One evening, as the sun set outside her hospital window, Maya received a visit from Captain Reynolds. His presence was both comforting and commanding, a reminder of the team waiting for her to return. "You've come a long way, Lieutenant," he said, his voice steady. "The base hasn't been the same without you." Maya nodded, a spark of determination lighting her eyes. "I'm ready to get back out there, to finish what we started." Reynolds smiled. "We need you. But remember, strength isn't just about fighting. It's about knowing when to rest and when to ask for help." That night, Maya lay in bed, the emblem gleaming softly in the moonlight. She understood now that true strength wasn't silence or invincibility. It was vulnerability, courage, and the willingness to carry on despite the pain. She was silent but not broken, bleeding but not defeated. Maya Carter was ready to stand again, bearing the emblem with pride and silent strength. The morning sun filtered through the curtains of the hospital room, casting warm light across the face of Lieutenant Maya Carter. For the first time in weeks, she awoke without the stabbing pain that had haunted her ribs. Her body still bore the marks of battle, the scars beneath her uniform, the lingering weakness, but her spirit was rekindled. Today was more than just another day of recovery. It was the day Maya had promised herself she would return to the fight. The silver trident emblem, pinned firmly over her heart, caught the light as she sat up, a reminder of everything she had endured and everything she still had to give. The emblem was no longer just a symbol of her father's legacy. It was a testament to her own courage, resilience, and unwavering resolve. Her journey back had been grueling. The internal bleeding, the fractured ribs, and the emotional scars had tested her in ways she never imagined. Yet, through every challenge, Maya had learned that strength came in many forms, sometimes in the roar of battle, sometimes in the quiet moments of healing, and often in the courage to face both. As the nurses bustled around preparing her for discharge, Maya's thoughts turned to the team she had left behind, the men and women still out there, carrying their own burdens and facing dangers she knew all too well. Captain Reynolds arrived, his presence commanding yet warm. "Ready to go back?" he asked, a knowing smile on his face. Maya nodded firmly. "More than ever. The mission isn't over." The journey back to the forward operating base was both familiar and surreal. The landscape stretched endlessly, scarred by conflict, but still alive with the promise of resilience. Maya felt a mix of anticipation and trepidation. How would she be received? Could she still be the leader and medic they needed? As the helicopter touched down, the familiar sounds of the base greeted her. A chatter of soldiers, the hum of machinery, the distant echo of drills. Faces turned toward her as she stepped onto the tarmac, expressions ranging from relief to admiration. Lieutenant Mason was among the first to approach, his grin wide and genuine. "Look at you. Back in action." Maya smiled, the warmth of camaraderie washing over her. "I'm not done yet." The days that followed were a whirlwind of activity. Maya threw herself into her duties with renewed vigor, tending to the wounded, training new medics, and strategizing with her team. The pain in her ribs had lessened, but the lessons from her recovery lingered. She learned to ask for help when needed, to lean on her team, and to recognize that true strength was a balance of resilience and vulnerability. One afternoon, as Maya conducted a training session, a young recruit approached her, eyes wide with admiration. "Lieutenant, how do you keep going after everything you've been through?" Maya paused, looking down at the emblem shining on her chest. "This," she said softly, tapping the trident, "is more than a symbol. It's a reminder that courage isn't about never falling. It's about getting back up every time you do. It's about carrying the weight of those who came before you and those who stand beside you." The recruit nodded, inspired by her words. Later that evening, Maya stood alone on the ridge overlooking the base. The sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple. The battle had left scars on the land, but it was still beautiful, a testament to endurance and hope. Her thoughts drifted to her father once more, the man whose legacy she carried. She whispered a silent promise to him, and to herself, that she would honor their sacrifices, protect her team, and face whatever came next with unwavering courage. The emblem on her chest gleamed softly in the fading light, a beacon of silent strength and enduring legacy. As night fell, Maya felt a profound sense of peace. She was more than the battles she had fought or the wounds she had carried. She was a symbol of resilience, a healer, a warrior, and above all, a bearer of a legacy that would endure long after the fighting stopped. Silent and bleeding, she had stood strong. And now, stronger than ever, Lieutenant Maya Carter was ready to lead her team forward into whatever challenges awaited. The mission continued, the fight for survival and honor unending, but so too did the legacy of those who carried the emblem with pride.